Hey everybody, it's Scott Brown here with day 28, I think it's day 28 of Darren LaCroix's Facebook Live Challenge, a 90-day Facebook Live Challenge. Kelly and I just finally got around to watching Harry Potter tonight. I know, it's not like it just came out. It's not like we didn't live in Orlando for 20 years, and it's not like we didn't go to Universal and ride the rides, that we had no idea what was happening on the rides. We had no idea why they were doing the things they were doing. But we finally watched Harry Potter tonight. And as we were watching the movie, one thing kept coming back into my mind. And it wasn't necessarily the fact that it was a good movie, which it was. I haven't read the books, but it was a decent movie. But the thing that I kept coming back to in my mind is the story behind the story. Now, in the movie, Harry doesn't know that within him lives something magical. He doesn't know what his story is. He just knows that he's living under the stairs in a situation that he doesn't necessarily like and doesn't really see a way out. But the story behind the story is really the story of a writer who invested in herself and believed in herself so thoroughly that no matter what happened, she was going to finish writing the books that she knew she had to tell. She wanted to write the stories that she knew she had to tell. And obviously J.K. Rowling did pretty well for herself. So what's the story behind your story? How did you get to where you are right now? Was it by plan? Was it by accident? Did you get somewhere because of somebody telling you that you were going to be great? Or did you get there because somebody told you that you weren't going to be great? And your story is that you are going to prove them wrong. Now, I would love to say that I've had people standing behind me for my entire life telling me how wonderful I was going to be, and I fed off of that positive energy. But I didn't. I didn't necessarily have that. Now, I certainly had loving parents who certainly wanted the best for me and certainly did the best and encouraged me along the way with everything that I did. But they weren't the only ones in my life, and they weren't the ones necessarily that oftentimes made the most impact with their words and their actions. It's hard to say, but I haven't necessarily always had those folks in my life that have wanted the best for me. Whether it's other family members, definitely some people I've worked for, definitely some people I've worked with, some people I've gone to college with, some people that I went to high school with. There's always been those folks out there that for whatever reason love to tell me that I wasn't going to amount to anything. And that's a quote that I've heard many times in my life. And there are a couple of times that really stand out to, you're not going to go anywhere, no one's ever going to listen to you, and certainly you're not going to amount to anything. And that's always been kind of a fire in my belly. It's always been something that I've wanted to prove the naysayers wrong. And when you try to prove naysayers wrong, sometimes you don't know what you're trying to prove them wrong about. You don't know where you're trying to go, you just know what you're running from. And that's a difficult situation to be in, that you're just trying to get away from something to prove something to somebody, but you don't know exactly what it is you're trying to do. And I can still remember there was a tipping point for me, and it was back in the early 2000s, and I was working for a major company in Orlando that I still carry around their values card, that I carry this around with me on a pretty regular basis, largely because they didn't live their values. What they said wasn't necessarily what they did. There was an alignment between who they said they were and who they actually were. So it wasn't necessarily something that was a positive experience for me, and it wasn't a positive experience for a lot of people that live in Orlando who work for this company. But a lot of people love them because the public persona and the external persona of the company is fantastic. But it made me really start to think about, what does it mean when you're misaligned, when you say one thing but you do something else? Who are you hurting? Are you hurting just the person in front of you, or are you hurting your reputation, your brand? Are you hurting everybody in the community that thinks you're one thing and you're not? That was kind of the impetus behind I first started thinking then about, what do I do about getting that together? And I ended up writing alignment. I ended up writing a book based upon the misalignment that I saw far too often in my life. Because the story behind my story was, I thought that I was better than what some other people thought that I was, and that I had more to offer than what other people thought that I had to offer. And you probably have people in your life that don't necessarily have your best interest at heart. And they say some things that are hurtful. They probably do some things that are hurtful and derogatory towards you, and they try to hold you down. Well, instead of just trying to prove them wrong, figure out exactly what you want to do and where you're trying to go. It took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do with my life and where I really mattered and how I was going to be able to help and have an impact on the most amount of people. And yeah, there is a lot of trying to prove people wrong, and there's a lot of I'm trying to find my way by doing something I didn't think I could do, but there's also a lot of, is this the right thing to do? And I question myself a lot. And if you find yourself questioning yourself, go back to the story behind the story, to what's important. What are those values? What are those beliefs that you carry around with you so deeply that it's just ingrained in your soul and it became your why? Your why matters more than anything else. Your why is how you're going to impact the world. So in Harry Potter, he found that his ability to help others was part of his why. It made him who he was, and it was magical. J.K. Rowling found that telling stories, this particular story, was her why. So what's your why? How are you going to impact somebody else so that maybe they have a more magical day tomorrow than what they were going to have otherwise? You can't impact everybody, but you can impact everybody you come in touch with. So hopefully tomorrow you'll reach out to somebody and just say, hey, thanks for being part of my life. Here's my why. Let's see if we can help you with yours. Take care, everybody. Have a good night, and we'll see you on Monday.